Altitude. 28,000 feet over the South China Sea, the early morning light fractured across layers of mist and ocean vapor. Inside the cockpit of a U.S. Navy F/A-18F Super Hornet, Lieutenant Commander Rachel Owens steadied her breathing, her gloved hands gripping the throttle as the glowing silhouette of the USS Gerald R. Ford glimmered below. The largest aircraft carrier in the world was now positioned along the Pacific Line, less than 400 nautical miles from the first chain of Chinese military outposts. On her radar, the screen was a living pulse, dozens of friendly aircraft circling like steel hawks in a coordinated ballet of deterrence. Beneath her, the Ford's flight deck was a live crews in color-coded uniforms, waving launch signals, F-35C jets roaring into the dawn vapor trail slicing through the humid sky. It was supposed to be a show of strength, but deep down, everyone knew the line between deterrence and provocation was razor thin. Aboard the USS Ford's Combat Information Center commander, Jacob Harlan, stood under the low blue light of the radar room. His headset crackled with overlapping transmissions reports from reconnaissance satellites, electronic warfare units, and sonar buoys. Command Chinese destroyers have repositioned along the Spratly perimeter, one voice reported. Unidentified radar spikes detected possibly Type 055 Renhai class. Harlan exchanged a silent glance with his second officer. Both men knew what that meant. China was not backing down. On the main tactical display, new signals appeared tagged in crimson mobile launch sites lighting up deep within the Chinese mainland. The coordinates matched DF-27 missile platforms, long believed to be capable of Mach 10 speeds and a range of velocity exceeding 8,000 kilometers. At that same moment, hundreds of kilometers inland, inside a hardened underground command center near Qingdao, General Liu Jianhui received final confirmation from the Central Military Commission. Phase 1 response, authorized, a colonel announced. The room fell silent as Liu removed his cap and approached the operations map projected onto the curved wall. Execute deterrence launch protocol, he ordered. The command was transmitted instantly across encrypted military satellites. Moments later, a dozen DF-27 hypersonic missiles began to rise from their launch silos, fiery plumes consuming the horizon. Civilians across eastern China saw the streaks of light tearing through the early sky, white-hot arrows vanishing toward the Pacific faster than sound itself. In space, American reconnaissance satellites registered the launches instantly. From geostationary orbit, the DF-27S appeared as streaking comets, radiant trails stretching for hundreds of kilometers across the Earth's curvature. At U.S. Indo-Pacific Command headquarters in Hawaii, alarms sounded as operators shouted over one another. Multiple launches confirmed Bering Pacific Line. Estimated trajectory, high-altitude glide path toward open ocean. Admiral Scott Reynolds slammed his hand onto the console. Get me NORAD and Fleet Command now. The room burst into motion as analysts began calculating potential impact corridors. Down on the deck of the Ford, sailors looked up as flashes pierced the upper atmosphere. Jesus Christ, what is that? One whispered. Within seconds, radar screens across the strike group began to spike. The Aegis combat systems aboard USS Ticonderoga and USS Arleigh Burke-class destroyers went active, tracking objects entering near space velocity. The air was electric with static and adrenaline. Lieutenant Owens received the scramble order: all fighters airborne, defensive pattern Delta 7. Expect possible overflight. She pushed the throttle to full military power, the Super Hornet roaring skyward into the light. As she climbed through the golden haze, she could see it, faint streaks across the high sky glowing like angry stars falling in slow motion. But they weren't stars. They were the first hypersonic warnings of a new kind of war. Far below, in the vast stillness of the Pacific, an eerie calm spread through the fleet. No explosions, no direct hits, just the silent message of power. The missiles arced high and fell harmlessly into international waters, detonating with seismic fury, but no casualties. Yet the message was crystal clear: Beijing had drawn its line, and the U.S. had crossed it. Commander Harlan stared at the radar feed as one by one the signals disappeared into static. They didn't miss, he murmured. They warned. and as the smoke from the distant detonation spread across the horizon, both fleets, American and Chinese, held their breath, waiting to see who would blink next. The shockwaves from the hypersonic detonations rippled across the Pacific like a silent drumbeat. Aboard the USS Ford, the tremors were faint, almost imperceptible, but every sailor felt the vibration of power that carried across the sea. Above the ocean's reflective skin, the contrails of American aircraft twisted into chaotic spirals, each pilot scanning for follow-up launches. The sky looked calm, but inside every radar dome and sonar array, the tension was screaming. Commander Jacob Harlan leaned over the operations table, his voice cold and steady. "We're not retreating. Fleet Command confirms Operation Pacific Shield continues. Maintain formation. Deploy counter-surveillance assets. We'll match their move with eyes, not missiles." The order echoed through the strike group. In the depths below the USS South Dakota, a Virginia-class nuclear-powered attack submarine silently shifted course beneath the waves. Captain Morgan Reyes peered through the digital periscope, his face illuminated by dim green light. "Bring us 30 meters up," he said quietly. "Active sonar off, passive tracking only." The submarine glided like a phantom through the dark waters, its sensors tuned to every vibration, every metallic hum in the abyss. Moments later, faint returns appeared on the sonar display, distant engine patterns, rhythmic and synchronized. Reyes recognized them immediately. Chinese Type 093B Shang-class submarines. "They're here," he whispered. "They've been shadowing us since Guam." Back on the surface, the carrier group continued to advance cautiously. The USS Ticonderoga and USS Bunker Hill formed the vanguard, their Spy 6 radar sweeping wide arcs through the clouds. "Contact bearing 087, surface displacement small craft," one operator shouted. Cameras zoomed in, revealing fast-moving silhouettes. Chinese Type 022 missile boats skimming low over the waves, each armed with YJ-83 anti-ship missiles. They weren't attacking, not yet, but their formation was deliberate, a visible wall of defiance. "They're drawing a line on the water," Harlan muttered. "Let's not be the first to cross it." Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Beijing, General Liu Jianhua reviewed live telemetry from the DF-27 tests. The missiles had hit their designated splash zones within 5 meters, a precision that left no doubt about capability. "Message delivered," he said to his staff. But then a young analyst pointed to new data on her monitor deep-sea sonar disturbances near the Philippine Trench. Saw multiple high-energy acoustic signatures, possibly U.S. sub-activity. Liu narrowed his eyes. "They're sending hunters. Prepare counter-detection protocol." Within minutes, China's Y-8Q maritime patrol aircraft were airborne from Hainan, deploying sonobuoys across the Pacific like breadcrumbs, listening for the faint whisper of American propellers. In the ocean's silent theater, Captain Reyes of the South Dakota felt the enemy's gaze closing in. "They've dropped buoys," his sonar officer reported. "We're lit." Reyes clenched his jaw. "Then we go dark." The submarine powered down all non-essential systems, its nuclear reactor shifting into silent cruise mode. Around them, the sea became a labyrinth of unseen threats, torpedoes, mines, drones, each side testing the other's nerves without firing a single round. The only sound was the rhythmic ping of distant sonar, like a ghost knocking from the deep. As night fell across the Pacific, the two great powers entered a dangerous equilibrium. Above, reconnaissance drones traced invisible arcs through the sky, their infrared sensors painting maps of tension. Below, submarines played deadly hide-and-seek, separated by kilometers, but only seconds from confrontation. Commander Harlan stood on the Ford's observation deck, watching lightning flicker on the horizon. He thought of the streaks of light that had crossed the sky hours earlier, the DF-27S. The warning shots. "They've shown their teeth," he said quietly. "Now everyone's waiting to see if we'll bite." On the far side of the sea, General Liu stared at a satellite feed showing the Ford's position, still advancing, still defiant. "Americans never blink," he muttered. His aide asked, "Should we escalate?" Liu's reply was ice cold. "Not yet. Let them come closer. The next message won't be a warning." Dawn broke over the Pacific like a blade, cutting through glass. The ocean shimmered with deceptive calm, its vastness concealing an orchestra of machines locked in silence. Above the waves, the U.S. carrier group maintained formation steel behemoths, drifting through mist, every deck on high alert. Inside the USS Gerald R. Ford's command bridge, Admiral Scott Reynolds received a secure line transmission from Washington. Maintain position, but be prepared. For engagement authorization, the voice said. Reynolds exhaled, his face drawn. Prepared in naval language meant seconds away from chaos. Far out at sea, a U.S. Navy P-8, a Poseidon reconnaissance aircraft, broke through a bank of clouds, its sensors sweeping the horizon. Command, we have visual on unidentified thermal blooms bearing 075 range 400 miles, the co-pilot announced. On the infrared feed, glowing streaks began to arc from a distant source, not from mainland China this time, but from mobile maritime platforms hidden near the Paracel Islands. They're launching again, the operator said, voice trembling. DF-27SC variant. Within seconds, NORAD confirmed multiple trajectories. The missiles were not targeting ships directly, they were cutting across the atmosphere, slicing the stratosphere in a demonstration of dominance. The message was brutal and calculated. China could strike from anywhere, anytime. The first hypersonic waves screamed overhead, moving faster than human eyes could track. The air itself shimmered with plasma. Alarms erupted across the Ford's Combat Information Center. Incoming overpass non-impact vector confirmed, shouted an operator. Admiral Reynolds barked, activate full-spectrum countermeasures. Launch interceptors. We're not letting them right the sky without answer. Within seconds, the carrier's deck roared to life. F-35C Lightning IIs screamed into the sky, followed by Growler electronic warfare jets. The fleet's destroyers launched SM-6 interceptors, their trails blazing upward like fiery spears chasing ghosts. High above the Pacific, a deadly ballet unfolded. Hypersonic DF-27S cut through the atmosphere at Mach 10, leaving shockwaves of burning air, while American interceptors tore across the sky in spirals of counter-trajectory. Explosions bloomed in the upper stratosphere, silent from the ground, but bright enough to light the sea below. Every sailor aboard the Ford felt the rumble in their bones. They're testing our defenses, Commander Harlan muttered. They're painting the line one move closer, and it's war. Beneath the waves, Captain Morgan Reyes watched sonar feeds explode with acoustic echoes. Multiple detonations above, his officer said, shockwaves reaching down to 100 meters. Reyes tightened his grip on the periscope rail. Hold steady. They're not aiming to hit. They're warning the world. Yet even as he spoke, his sonar pinged something new, faint metallic resonance moving fast. Wait, that's no echo, the technician whispered. A torpedo. Unknown origin. Reyes froze. Evasive maneuvers dive deep. The submarine rolled hard as the torpedo streaked past, detonating harmlessly in the black depths. A close call or a message no one could tell. By dusk, the Pacific was lit by 1,000 contrails and fading flames. Both fleets stood their ground, battered by nerves but untouched by fire. On the deck of the Ford, sailors watched the horizon where the sun sank into blood-red water. The air smelled of salt fuel and fear. Admiral Reynolds looked west and said quietly, if deterrence means dancing on a razor's edge, then today we've danced enough. He ordered the fleet to hold position, neither advancing nor retreating. The unspoken rule of modern warfare had returned: win the message, not the war. In Beijing, General Liu Jianhua received the final telemetry from the Pacific. All missiles had struck open water, no casualties, no escalation. The Americans understand now, he said. Next time they will think twice before entering our line. He turned off the monitors and looked at the empty night beyond his window. Power is not about pulling the trigger, he whispered. It's about making the world afraid that you might. Over the vast dark ocean, the last echoes of the detonations faded into silence. The Pacific slept again, but under its calm surface lay a truth both nations now understood: the next flash across the sky might not be a warning. It might be the beginning.